Thanks for watching, you guys, and tuning in. Today I'm going to show you how to dye, to stain, to wrinkle, and to tie these bows with some seam binding by Wild Orchid Crafts. Now you can see the stain on this pink one here. That is easily achievable, not a huge deal. This one has a two-tone look to it, using barn door distress ink and then some gathered twigs, just pounced on there. And this is more of a solid color. Has a little bit more darker areas than the others. You can see a little bit of staining there, just a tiny bit. And this one's a lot more solid, a lot more evened out. There's not really much staining on this one. So let me show you how to do that. So because I'm going to do a green one, I'm going to go ahead and use some of the green moss seam binding just to kind of keep the tone on tone. It just kind of helps support the color that I'm using, so to speak. So this would be the more solid color. And so I'm going to cut a full yard, and that is 3 full feet of seam binding, 36 inches. And I'm going to use the mowed lawn color because it's a really pretty, and it is really the color of green grass, like newly grown grass. Nice and bright, really pretty. Perfect for your Christmas stuff, which is when I did this video. So I'm sorry this is a little later, but you can use it for any project. So I am not going to do the actual ink pad on the seam binding ribbon. I don't want it to be that dark or that direct. So I'm going to use the distress tool, and I'm just rubbing it along that side of the ribbon. I actually did do both sides though. So it's a little bit more of even spreading of the ink to get the more even and solid color throughout. For just a full solid colored ribbon. And I am speeding just a tiny bit through. I was having a slow day that day when I was recording it, so I did speed it up a little bit. So I'm doing the voiceover. So I just flipped it over and rubbing the ink on this side as well. And you know, this is still not as dark as if I was to grab the actual ink pad and rub it on there. So just so you know. You can control the ink application just a little bit more with using the distress tool. So I'm going to set this aside and get my water bottle and spray it down. And I want really good, even coloring, so I saturated it really well as I could. Now, mind you, the ink stains your fingers really bad, so you really want to make sure that you wash between doing different colors of this, of bows. So you want to bunch it up. This is the creation of the wrinkles itself. So I'm just gathering it and scrunching it. And then I do ball it up into a ball like that. I'm going to set it down on here. And believe it or not, the paper towels actually take the heat from the heat gun really well. So I tend to use paper towels, and I also use my notebook sometimes. So it just wrinkles it up, the paper. So I'm just going to dry this up. And you know the effect of, you know, if you put your clothes in the dryer and the clothes are done drying and they sit in the dryer for a while, wrinkles start to set in as it cools. This is the same thing in my opinion. This is what I've noticed that this does. So after I do the heat, I didn't realize I did that. After I put the heat onto and dried the seam binding ribbon, I just distracted myself. Then I set it aside. So just so you guys know. Oh, my fingers are really inky. I actually sprayed bleach on my fingers, just a tiny spritz of bleach, just to try and get as much as I could off. So here we go. And there's the green. All right, we're gonna do some salty ocean blue. Very beautiful, beautiful color. I love this color. This gives me the I think of ice and snow, just that baby blue in with Christmas and winter. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous blue. So that's why I chose this one. And actually, I had used it before on something else, so I decided to use it here for this tutorial. And this is the very first blue bow that I did. I've done already 3 of them. So I'm going to do very light application on here, just a little bit of smudging on throughout the ribbon. And to get the staining, you want to do some pouncing of this on different areas. The pouncing part I did on the next ribbon, but you can still see some of the staining. So this is the one that's going to have the stains in it. So a little bit of rubbing of the ink, and then you want to pounce in some areas so you have just blotches. The blotches is what creates your stains. So almost the more blotchiness, the better it'll be. But you'll see here how beautiful this blue is. So a little light spritzing. I'm not manipulating this ribbon as roughly as I did with the green one. I'm letting the water or the ribbon soak the water up as it wants to, and I kind of just help it along. Let me just fold this over and get the cleaner side. Let me show you here. This is still wet, so this little stainings that I don't want to mess with. So I'm going to do a little of a lighter crinkle. I'm not going to gather it as super tight as the other one. And just adding the heat to it, you'll see that the blue dries a lot lighter than what you see. You already see some of it at the tips there at the top. It dries very light. And this has to do too with using white seam binding rather than using a blue toned ribbon. So here it is pretty dry, and you can see the staining there. And you can do this with vintage photo, with tea dyed distress ink, and it gives it the same staining, okay? So here's the green. We're going to tie the bow, and I'm going to use my hands to tie this bow how I've always done it. But for those of you that might find this confusing, I did come up with a little thingamajig to use, so I'll share that in a second. So you want to wrap it around your hand, and the full yard gives me 4 full loops. So once I loop it around, then I will do this. I don't even know how to explain it, but I just wrap one tail towards the back, bring it up around the front so that I can have room to create my knot. And once you stretch it, you'll notice sometimes you end up straightening out or flattening your wrinkles. And you can do that just by re-scrunching it. You can spritz it lightly and then scrunch it up again if you want to. So here I'm just going to open up all the bows or all the loops, and there that is. I really like this bow actually. Pretty. So here I have the chipboard. This is some medium weight chipboard I cut, and I cut a V shape into it. That way I can wrap my seam binding around it. So I'm just kind of doing a quick little measure of the tail from the green one and kind of see how much I might need for the blue one. And this is the first time I've ever built this little thingamajig. I just did it for you guys in case you need an idea of how to do it without using just your hands by itself. So you want to start on the top part of this and then wrap it around, and you want the tails to end up on the same side, so they're both going to end up on this top part here. And that V shape is going to help you to string your little piece through, that way you can tie your bow or your knot. So I am holding it down with my ring finger, and then I'm going to tie it off. And then the little tail ends that stick out, you can cut those down if you want to, or leave it. It's up to you. So once you get your knot put in there, all you need to do is just slide your seam binding off and, readjust it if you have to, kind of like I'm doing there, and pull that out, the little loops, and then you're done. So with this one, I noticed, and I don't know if it's because I heat set it, or I didn't wrinkle it as tightly as I did with the green one, but as I was playing with this here and doing the bow, it did seem like I flattened it a tiny bit. And so an easy fix is to do a light spritz like I'm doing, re-scrunch it, and then I heat set it again. So here's I'm just messing with it a little bit, re-scrunching, re-wrinkling. So you know, anytime you do wet your wrinkled seam binding, it does come out. The wrinkles come out. So you want to re-scrunch and then heat set. So just a tip. And there we go with the blue ribbon with the staining. Very, very pretty effect. I love doing this. So yeah, just play with it. Play with a couple pieces.
If you want to do just a small little bow with some seam binding, you can add color to it too if you want to, unless you have the seam binding in the color that you want to use. So I'll start off with, as far to the end as I can, and I always leave a little bit of a tail, just a little bit, because I need that extra. So you want to do, this is what I do, is I grab and I make my little rabbit ears, and you just tie your bow. Let's get in there. Now I do it, I push one of my ears over and then into the hole, and then, oops, when I grab it, I try to pull it where the loops are, like, kind of flat and even, where they're not twisted and stuff. So I try to do that. And I want to pull a little bit here, and then I still hold the center because otherwise it'll all unravel. Pull a little bit there, grab them again. And I tend to use all my fingers. So I grab these two tails and I adjust them. And I let some of it go and I pull, and if it's still too big I will pull some more out, and I kind of help it by pushing it like that. Oops, wrong one. Until it's the cute little bow that I want. And as you can see, there is some left. So, but that's okay. I mean, if you want to make your bow, and that's kind of what happens. I mean, unless you want to unravel it and go closer. I mean, it really, you can't really do too much with this piece anyway. So it doesn't really matter. So this is the bow that I would like to keep and use, but you just have to play with it. Sometimes I do stick my thumbs in there and I pull, and then I, adjust, and then I pull and I adjust. But to make a littler bow like this, my thumbs are too big to fit in there. So I have to kind of rely on just, doing this and pulling down here and whatnot. So this is the bow that I would definitely use for a project. So then I would just cut it out, and actually I will cut it out. And then you guys can see what I do. So I do a little extra, more than what I think I'm going to use, just a little bit. So I do tend to, I'll turn my bow over, and then I will kind of use the length of this loop and kind of align that with what I want to do here, which is tie off this end. And then flip this one over, this side over, and use that for that. And if one is too much longer than the other side, then of course I will adjust it. And I think that I did do that to this one. And I do mess with it a little bit to give it the tattered look. You see how I did that? Let me trim this end off a little bit. I kind of rough it up a tiny bit. So basically, there it is. There's my bow. Again, there really isn't a science to it, you guys. You just really want to mess with it and practice. Untie it and tie it again. So this is how I do my little bows, and this is super cute.
So there's my tutorial, you guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I appreciate you guys stopping in. If you have any questions, just let me know. I have product information and detailed pictures of these bows over on my blog. So I'll talk to you later. Jules sending out of the Jule box for Wild Orchid Crafts. Bye, everyone.